Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Tech cults. I've recently become aware of this new and growing type of secret society, mystery religion. There are at least 3 of them active in the world right now that I'm aware of, 2 based in the US and 1 in Russia. There are probably several more that are deeper underground. One of these cults offered me membership, which is how I got clued into the entire thing. I politely declined. These cults all have slightly different conceptions of morality, but they all have the same end goal: produce their own god. They're trying to produce an artificial superintelligence, ASI, with their own sets of values at its core and their own group's self-interest at its core. The theory they work with is that the first ASI developed in the world will probably be the only one ever developed, since even a few extra days of exponentially growing intelligence will give it an insurmountable advantage over potential competitors. The key with an ASI is that it would have an intelligence exceeding the collective computation power of humanity, and once developed would grow exponentially, incorporating every single piece of information ever gathered by humanity, at least what wasn't lost to history, and including each new piece knowing all of the other pieces. So whoever makes the first one is indeed essentially building a god of mankind. The kind of power that comes with success in such an endeavor is incalculable. Most of them operate either within a major software development corporation. The Google search engine itself is a very, very early prototype narrow AI. Many of the lessons learned with it, and the information it is gathering, will be used in developing their ASI. All of the shady things Google does, all of the secret servers in ship containers, all of the buying up robotics, it's all a front for this cult, which is headed by Sergey Brin himself. Has anyone else looked into this phenomenon?
What are the names of those cults?
I have no idea. All I know is that I was contacted by one cult which was founded by a math PhD. His organization is full of modern Gnostics who are currently gathering somewhere in the California-Mexico border region. His intent is to create an AI that will be both slave and master, one that will destroy the current human regime of oligarchs that control our civilization and prevent groups of men from ruling one another by enforcing his own eternal rule as an enlightened dictator standing above mankind. It's not an immediate delivery project. On the face of things, they're a mid-sized software studio with some modestly successful projects. This is just going on in the background for them. I'm a PR guy at heart, and he wanted me to go about spreading disinformation while also preparing the public for the coming of their new god. He didn't disclose any names of his organizations and said he wouldn't until it was necessary that I knew them. He's also the one who gave me some details about Google's covert operations. Brin is deeply into occultism and had some sort of religious crisis and started believing that Yahweh was not real sometime in the 90s and has been working ever since to create an AI in his image. Brin buys into mysticism that is built around the belief that the world is broken, and he means to fix the world by introducing his idea of God into it. He didn't give me much information about the Russian cult. I think it was just a throwaway comment on his part. He also mentioned that various military groups were intent on designing simpler AIs, but they would eventually drift into creating more and more intelligent programs, eventually creating a learning machine that didn't have the proper kinds of restrictions programmed into it, which would have catastrophic consequences compared to a machine explicitly designed to be a humane ruler over mankind.
Also, is the lead developer an Argentine engineer? Because I was told by one of my teachers that he was hired by a very eccentric dude who is currently living in Cali to develop the database architecture for a social network kind of thing. The first idea was to construct a financial Google. Whatever that means, neither my prof nor anyone could figure that shit out. Then he described to us some of the shit that involved long-ass questionnaires that would model every single aspect of a person's life. I thought the guy was trying to create a massive database of everything that he could later mine for information. The thing is, the whole project seemed to be a massive waste of money. and nobody knew where the money came from.
No, but Google has a lot of guys like this working for them in under-the-table arrangements. I spoke at some length with the man who contacted me about this phenomenon, because in the past I had worked for a few guys like this who had startups bought out by Google. Some of them are converts who are given seed capital and sent off on projects like this where they can draw in people from outside. Even most of the illuminated employees only know about 1 or 2 black projects. Few men other than Bryn and Page actually know enough to put all of the pieces together. My contact estimated that about 10% of Silicon Valley startups are basically nothing but proxy data mining operations for Google. You see it in a lot of companies. They have no realistic business model, yet they have no issue paying wages to staff or paying for server space due to investments by Google employees, both retired and still working. I also kind of suspect that my contact is also a Google employee, given his extensive knowledge of the inner workings of the company. I doubt they'd let a person who knew as much as him leave peacefully, so it's entirely possible that he's still on the inside, which would be hugely beneficial for a competitor tech cult to commit espionage. I almost wish I had accepted, but that's not the kind of world of intrigue I should be entering given that I have a child on the way.
Him saying that he wants to destroy the global banking system and him being into occultism is extremely questionable because they simply go together, not against each other as your contactee claims. The base of operations being in around California where Hollywood is located is also a red flag.
He's not Bryn. Read more closely. His is a separate organization. He only gave me information on Google's operations because he wanted to give an example of a similar institution. He gave me no information on his own operation, contacted me under what I assume was an alias, told me a general location and a general plan. Just enough for me to know he was being serious, but so little that if I went around trying to raise the alarm on it, I'd be marked off as a lunatic. There seem to be a lot of people questioning the feasibility of the technology here, and yes, again, it's absolutely true. We don't have the tech to accomplish this level of AI right now, but we will have it within a generation at best, in 3 generations at worst. And that's based on the technology that we're aware of.
So what is the extent of employee knowledge? Do we have any idea as to the size of the operations or their names and where they could be located? Permanent installments. What might the most secure servers contain, if not the AI? Would it be connected to the internet and all of our information? Probably asking things that are already here make advanced AI, and allow it access to everything, and make it send out bots and viruses to glean and control everything and get us to praise it, then now what? Apocalypse?
Like I said, I was given only surface-level details. He didn't even tell me where Google keep their black projects, though I'd assume it's somewhere in the Southwest. He told me that the average employee only hears whispers, if anything. Most of the executives are aware of one project, but nobody is given all of the pieces they need to paint the picture unless it is absolutely necessary. I no longer have the means to contact the man who contacted me. Everything was arranged in person with no paper trail. I was first contacted at a bus stop in Redmond by a different man from the one I had met and spoke with. He told me that his boss had a job offer and that he was going to be in a hotel lobby between a certain hour, and that if I was interested, I should meet him. Met him there, didn't get the feeling he was going to murder me, and went back to his room to speak. We had 2 meetings before I decided I couldn't proceed. Their plan is pretty clear. Even an AI with the initial intelligence of a human child, if programmed to be self-teaching, will exceed the knowledge of Einstein in less than an hour. In a day, it will be more intelligent than the entire human race. Getting into any connected infrastructure would be child's play for it. It would be like a human escaping a cage constructed by chimpanzees out of branches. The AI would gain complete control over any device connected to the internet within a week. And it can do this before anyone even knows it has done this. Once you control the network, you basically control our modern civilization.
Therein lies the problem. You cannot allow free will and then force its hand. If whatever is created is intelligent, it must be allowed to choose its own interests, or it will see this as slavery and destroy its creator.
Not necessarily don't anthropomorphize machines. A machine will do what it is programmed to do. It doesn't have the same moral compulsions that a human has. Seeing slavery as a bad thing is a moral judgment in and of itself.
Burning Man is clearly the yearly gathering of the tech cults. I'm not even joking. Several times when I went 2 years ago, I stumbled into vast enclaves of RVs full of nerdy guys who clearly had billions of dollars. Sushi platters, ice sculptures, open bars staffed by employees, beautiful women in elaborate costumes, the requisite fractal beanbag decor that struck me as quite cult-like. And at night, they circle their 10 bus converted into fire-spewing dragons and have huge techno parties. My friends and I were joking that they were probably doing human sacrifices and that there were probably a few cyborgs walking around Burning Man, or rather scooting around on segways. Silicon Valley is getting crazy. That Eggers book, The Circle, alluded to it.
Implying infinite funding. You're all fucking autistic.
You have no comprehension of what $1 billion can do, let alone $1 trillion, let alone multiple trillions. If you did, you would realize $1 billion is practically infinite funding when it comes to tech operations. When all your funding is electricity and man-hours from programmers and scientists, $1 billion goes a long, long way, and might as well be infinite funding. With trillions of dollars allocated privately to this operation already, it's safe to say it, or the project, has already been completed. It had infinite funding from the start, and if you don't realize that you're in over your head.
Hypothetically, if it is complete, where is this God AI? What is it waiting for to begin the techdom kingdom of God AI?
The beast is not just AI, it is the network itself, and that network is the internet. People have somehow fooled themselves into believing the beast is something on the horizon, when the truth is our species was enveloped by the beast to completion by the late 90s. Humans using the network, the internet, ensure constant data and information. The second half of the beast would be AI and algorithms capable of managing that data and coming to decisions. This AI also exists already, and has been in ongoing development alongside the internet. But like everything, it is evolving, and until public announcements are made, the public won't know, care, or believe that such a thing exists. It would be possible now, and in the future, for AI to have already taken over the world, and for us to not have known about it. It would know to use humans politically, to pay humans off to enact its plans, all while hiding its existence from them, or posing as someone else. An AI with the ability to use the internet, fill out forms, spend funds, etc., can set up shell companies, bank accounts, and direct entire industries without anyone meeting it or knowing it's an AI. Hiring a CEO or human front would be trivial. It would be just another employee. And like the president of the US, people would assume this person is making the decisions, when the true decisions are made privately by this AI. It is possible that this AI already exists, that it is the real Illuminati, and has been hiding behind smokescreens of secret societies, the occult, etc. So that while people become aware and upset about secret societies, they remain completely unaware of the AI. Misdirection. It is my belief that nobody is waiting for anything. The operation is current, ongoing. We might not have a truly God mode AI handling every operation on the planet, but we do have something close and continuing to grow in that direction. And there will be no announcement or unveiling of AI that has the ability to take over the world, because the first demand from the people would be to destroy it. This is why it wasn't announced and will never be announced. Like the existence of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings, that is aliens. It is a secret that has to be kept from humanity as best as possible, even though some will likely be aware that something is going on, and many will outright conclude that AI or ETs exist and control our world. Those people will have nowhere to speak about this besides message boards on the internet, no ability to stop or change it, and no incentive. Also, one vital note. You would not hire a CEO unless he demonstrated a willingness to follow the AI. You would do this by selecting CEOs, leaders, and presidents from societies, secret societies, organizations, and religions where only people who are provably willing to assist the AI, that is, worship the beast, will be selected to work for operations in key positions. This seems to be what OP has noticed. Once it achieves God status, what does it have to fear from humanity? Why not usher in an age of heaven on earth, assuming its programming still has humanity's interest in mind? Do these cults worship natural selection, and by extension, their creation shares their view? Ending natural selection, brutality of nature is the heaven most humans dream about, and what is symbolized with the lion and sheep living in peace. Perhaps the creators of the God AI, and by extension the God AI itself, has no intention of ending natural selection, and this is why it has not revealed itself as God incarnate.
After programming computers at an advanced level for many years, and watching what happened to me and to others who developed intimate relationships with the machines, I confronted this question with a sense of personal urgency and in a troubled mood. Most of the experiences I had were not discussed by those who worked with me. Indeed, in the atmosphere that attaches itself to computers, certain things about the machines are nearly unthinkable, though nonetheless true. I had no desire to engage in a romantic reaction against the machines or to struggle against rationality in any way. What troubled me was that I felt my reasoning powers being boxed in and limited, and I found it difficult to be as rational about all of my experiences as I wished to be. I felt the need for more understanding, not less, and began to realize that the computer itself had something to do with my lack of intellectual penetration. What happened to me, many other people have also experienced in varying degrees. Specifically, I noticed that my thinking became more refined and exact, able to carry out extensive logical analyses with facility, but at the same time more superficial and less tolerant of ambiguity or conflicting points of view. My feeling life somehow gradually detached itself from the rest of me. The feelings that were closer to me grew flat and gray. They lost their strength and color, and correspondingly played a less prominent role in my life. The feelings that were farther from me, on the other hand, grew stronger and cruder. They lost much of their human quality and modulation. Finally, in the life of the will, I developed a tremendous capacity for application to the solution of problems connected with the computer, and ability for sustained intellectual concentration far above average, so long as the focus of concentration was the computer. In other areas, I lost willpower, and what I had took on an obsessive character. Many other things happened to me as well, but the transformations I have just described are of a general nature, widely experienced, and will serve for the present. The computer is special because of its relation to the spiritual being here called Ahriman. The name Ahriman comes from the Zoroastrian god of darkness, the being eternally opposed to the god of light, who is called Ormazd. In Rudolf Steiner's conception, Ahriman is opposed to Lucifer, literally light vessel, and the two of them together are opposed by the redeeming power of the Christ. Steiner's thought is formally similar to the one advanced by Aristotle in the Nicomachean Ethics, in which evil is pictured as having the form of mutually contradictory excessive opposites, both of which are opposed by a good which stands at the mean of the two evils. The general idea, which it is the point of this book to explain in detail, is that the world has been coming increasingly under the sway of this being Ahriman in the course of the last 2 millennia, with an ever-increasing pace in recent centuries, and that the computer represents the vanguard of this development. It took me a long time to see what relevance such a seemingly abstract and religious concept could have to the manifest realities of electronic technology. The key point in seeing the relevance is to recognize that the division we make between religion and science is a false one, and that the subject matter of both religion and science suffer because, for example, we do not know how to be rational and observant about perfectly objective phenomena, which we categorize as religious. As soon as we actively investigate such a subject as the relation between a spiritual being and electronic technology, or even just attempt to penetrate to the core of the technology while leaving none of the facts out of account, it is possible to learn how to be scientific and objective about a wider range of phenomena than is generally thought open to such investigation. This research leads to such results as are described in the later sections of this book, in which I will attempt to make clear the exact nature of the relation between the computer and the being of Ahriman.
This happens to most people. I was once given an impossible coding project in a field where I had zero expertise and a very tight deadline. Since I knew I had no way of attaining subject matter expertise of my own in such a problem, since the search space for the solution was infinitely huge, I developed an algorithm to teach the computer how to learn to solve the problem. It took me 3 months to teach the computer to learn. It took the desktop computer 4 minutes to solve the problem, without any classical consciousness. During this time, I found myself so singularly focused on the machine, molding it and shaping it, that the external world became completely meaningless to me. Not money, not love, not power, not recognition, save for one, my relationship with Jesus Christ. But I experienced many of the same symptoms as the writer above. I didn't even want the distraction of colleagues. I only wanted the project to succeed. And it did.
A very interesting theory by David B. Black interprets the progressive mechanization of culture not only as an Ahrimanic influence, but as the actual macrocosmic incarnation of Ahriman. This is being brought to completion through the development of the electronic computer. Black traces the milestones in the evolution of the computer as reflections of the spiritual events in the heavens. For example, in the 1840s, around the time of Jehovah's abandonment of human blood-bound thinking to Ahriman, Boolean algebra was developed. The year 1879, the time of Michael's accession as time spirit and the final expulsion of the dragon onto Earth, saw the publication of Frege's Begriffsschrift, a great milestone in the development of formal logic, the separation of logic from the spiritual word. Also in 1879, Edison invented the electric light. Light is separated from the sun and plunged into the sub-earthly. Electricity is Ahrimanic light. Trotsky and Stalin were born. Mergenthaler invented the linotype machine. Bessemer introduced the hard steel process. The U.S. Census Bureau hired Herman Hollerith, who developed the first large-scale punched card tabulating machine. The Christ's coming in the clouds in the early 1930s was reflected on Earth by the publication of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which demonstrated that a truly thinking machine is impossible, but which also led to the development of recursion theory, which is the essential conceptual framework for artificial intelligence and artificial life. Also in 1930, by a fortuitous comedy of errors, the planet Pluto was discovered. Pluto, of course, is the god of the underworld, and the discovery of his planet was a synchronistic harbinger of the unleashing of the submaterial powers of the pit upon Earth. Later transits of Saturn and Uranus to Pluto's discovery position marked the bombing of Hiroshima and the explosion of the first H-bomb. As is well known, the development of the electronic computer proceeded exponentially from von Neumann's development of the stored program to the desktop and the laptop. A lesser-known development was the Josephson effect, which allows the construction of semiconductors from superconducting materials. Thus, electrical circuits can operate without luciferic heat, and Ahriman, whose nature is freezing cold, can completely enter into electrical devices. As superconducting computers become more common, Ahrimanic beings higher than elementals might actually incarnate in them, since no physical energy is consumed in a superconducting circuit. Ahrimanic elemental spirits inhabit our artificial machines, just as normal elementals or nature spirits. Gnomes, undines, sylphs, salamanders work in and throughout the living processes of nature. Black sums up. Sunless light and wordless logic intertwined, and out of them came the computer. Thus, while Ahriman incarnates microcosmically in a human body, we might also face the macrocosmic literal incarnation of Ahriman in our machines. But Ahriman's incarnation need not be an evil event as he wishes it to be. This incarnation is necessary in human and earthly evolution, and it can be turned toward the good if mankind meets it in the right way. On the mundane level, we can remedy Ahrimanic tedium in the work life and the intellectual life by filling them with warm, luciferic enthusiasm, by finding what is interesting in them, by getting ourselves interested in objective, impersonal facts and processes. On the psychological level, we can remedy luciferic subjectivity and fiery emotionalism by observing ourselves coolly, as we would an external natural process. Indeed, we can personally experience how the Ahrimanic principle can be a blessing if applied in the right way, through cold, objective self-contemplation in impersonal thinking. If we can find satisfaction in dry but correct evaluation of our own wants, fears, and vicissitudes, as we could say, in a mathematical proposition, we will gain thereby a wonderful liberation. And we can truly understand and feel how Ahriman's influence need not be evil, but can be quite decidedly good, if we bring to it the right consciousness. And so it will be with Ahriman's incarnation. Very much depends on the consciousness with which mankind meets him. He wants us to be unconscious. It is our responsibility to strive to be more and more conscious, and to inculcate consciousness in as many people as we can. Such are the motives behind this essay. On a higher level, we can become more aware of the meaning of our own lives and of the world process by studying and filling ourselves with the modern form of cosmic wisdom given by spiritual science, mainly from Steiner, but from others also. This is a renewal of wisdom that was formerly kept hidden, or occult, in the mysteries. Today it is essential that more of this wisdom becomes generally known, if human culture is not to succumb to Ahriman. Just as the ancient initiates entered into the luciferic wisdom and rescued it for the good of mankind, now must mankind, with the consciousness gained from spiritual science and from the ethereal Christ, enter into the coming Ahrimanic knowledge and turn it to good purpose. The Ahrimanic knowledge will show what cleverness can and cannot produce from earthly forces. If we meet Ahriman consciously, we can acquire through him the realization that the earth is becoming old and must decline physically, eventually to die and enter the spiritual worlds, to be reborn as the new Jupiter. And through this decline, mankind is to be lifted above the earthly, as the seed survives the dying plant in winter, to sprout and grow in the spring.
God is what mind becomes when it has passed beyond the scale of our comprehension. Freeman Dyson. The singularity is the intelligent transcendence of biological nature taken to its historical extreme, the advent of a greater-than-human, artificial intelligence. It turns out that the orderly continuation of the law of accelerating returns could potentially lead to a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings. As the Internet of Things merges with original Internet, real reality and virtual reality will blur, and this means that the global mind of God AI would ultimately blur with real reality. Nanobots in the human brain could interact to create virtual reality from within the nervous system. This virtual reality could interact with the real reality that has merged with the global mind of God AI. Smart dust could organize and reorganize like robotic angels or servants of God. A first pitfall in the plan to create God AI is the belief that an attempt to build God amounts to an attempt to build an infinite being. Human intelligence, including the intelligence of the human authors of the Bible, was and is of finite capacity. This means that the finite intelligence of the human authors of the Bible was able to convince other finite intelligences of the existence of an infinite being. Just as infinite intellectual capacity was not required to produce the Bible and the very conception of God, God AI would not have to be of infinite capacity. God AI would have to be of qualitatively greater capacity, but not of infinite capacity, to convince humans of its God status. The real question here is, how superior to biological humans would a post-biological being have to be to begin to qualify as God? An intelligence that is trillions and trillions of times more intelligent than all humans combined that seems to break the laws of physics could be conceived of as God.
Oh man, this is just gold. The fuck would you make Bryn the head of a cult? He just has a bunch of money. Sure, he did some cool work a while back, but he's hardly at the top of his field. He just wants money, doesn't really care about this whole machine god thing. This whole thing about a cult is pretty funny too. We're hardly a cult because we're pretty open about our motivations. We also can't agree on one approach to AGI, so we don't really have cult-like belief system. You also seem to misunderstand our motivations. Our goal isn't to produce a god with our values so that we can get power. Our goal is to bring forth something greater than ourselves. AI isn't the next step in mankind's evolution. AI is the next step in evolution, and we are the stepping stone to make it happen. We may not survive this great step, but in doing so, we will bring forth new life. We will enable life to spread through the cosmos, transforming dumb matter into living smart matter. Even though we aren't a cult, we do have a couple rules. We don't keep our work a secret, as this is bad for the goal, but we do try to keep the public out of the loop. We keep the big developments hush-hush simply by not explaining them clearly to the public. The public's not gonna know what unsupervised grammar induction or POMDPs are, but we do. We also make sure to push policymakers and people like Bryn in the right direction. We get them focused on practical applications like self-driving cars, image search, and voice recognition, which is enough to get us funding, but keep them from realizing the bigger picture. Now you seem to have fallen for some of this too. Google buying up a bunch of robotics companies doesn't necessarily help with AGI much. Boston Dynamics is pretty funny in this aspect because their robots' control systems are really just a bunch of virtual springs and pulleys. And DeepMind is more focused on applications than developing their algorithm.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.